On March 24th, 1962, Seattle's world-famous monorail opens to the public. But why did Seattle construct a monorail? And who were some of the famous people to ride it that first year? And what accidents have occurred on the monorail over the years? The Century 21 Exposition, better known as the Seattle World's Fair, was scheduled to open in April 1962. The venue for the fair was located north of downtown and featured the newly constructed Space Needle. To transport guests between the fair and downtown Seattle, West German transportation company Allweg was contracted to construct a monorail. This was the same company that built Disneyland's monorail, which opened 3 years earlier in 1959. It took 11 months to build at a cost of $3.5 million and opened to the public nearly a month before the fair. The Seattle Monorail was made up of 2 trains, one red and one blue, each with its own dedicated rail. The rails were comprised of 70-foot concrete beams supported by 30-foot tall Y-shaped columns. During the 6 months of the fair, the monorail carried 8 million guests, easily covering the cost of construction and even turning a profit for Allweg. Some famous people who rode the monorail to the fair in 1962 included Vice President Lyndon Johnson, former Vice President and future President Richard Nixon, and Elvis Presley, who was in town to film the movie It Happened at the World's Fair. Following the fair, the monorail became the property of the Century 21 Corporation, which sold it to the city of Seattle for $600,000 in 1965. In 1978, Seattle decided to do a so-called monorail spruce-up by repainting the blue train a different shade of blue and painting the red train green. This was meant to match Seattle's theme colors, which were featured in the uniforms of the city's 1976 NFL expansion team, the Seahawks. The color change was very unpopular, and the trains were returned to their original colors a few years later. Between 1986 and 1998, the monorail underwent extensive renovations. These included the moving of the southern station to its current location at the Westlake Center. Only one accident was reported on the monorail during the fair, and not until its penultimate day. A packed red train overshot the Westlake loading platform and hit a bumper at a low rate of speed. No injuries were reported, and the train was back in service 2 hours later. 2 larger incidents occurred in the 1970s, each involving trains overshooting their stations. In one, 26 people were injured, and in the other, 15 were injured. In 2004, an electrical short circuit caused a fire to break out in the blue train. 8 people suffered minor injuries. In 2023, a 14-year-old boy from Phoenix, Arizona, was tragically struck and killed by one of the trains while he was standing on the roof of a building under the monorail's route, spray painting graffiti. He is the only fatality in the monorail's history. You can still ride the monorail in Seattle today. It goes back and forth between 2 stations with no stops in between. On the southern end is the Westlake Center, an office tower and shopping mall in downtown Seattle. On the northern end is the Seattle Center, where the World's Fair was held. The Seattle Center is the location of the Space Needle, the Museum of Pop Culture, Climate Pledge Arena, which is where the Seattle Kraken NHL team plays, the Chihuly Garden and Glass Museum, and other venues. From the station at Westlake Center, you can connect to the Metro line. Today, Seattle's monorail is just under a mile. At the time of the World's Fair, it was just over a mile, extending a bit past its current Westlake Center station. The 2 original Seattle monorail trains have never been replaced and have now traveled more than 1 million miles. While visiting Seattle and riding the monorail, it seems impossible not to think of the 1990s Simpsons monorail episode, guest starring Leonard Nimoy as himself and Phil Hartman as Lyle Landley, who is based on the character Harold Hill from The Music Man. Monorail, 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 monorail. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1765, Parliament passes the Quartering Act, requiring American colonists to house soldiers in their homes. In 1944, 76 Allied airmen escaped from a German POW camp in what is known as the Great Escape. In 1989, the Exxon Valdez runs aground on a reef in southern Alaska, spilling 11 million gallons of oil. In 1998, 2 students opened fire at their middle school in Arkansas, killing 4 students and a teacher. In 2001, Diamondbacks pitcher Randy Johnson hits a bird mid-flight during a spring training game. In 2005, the US version of The Office, based on a British TV series of the same name, premieres on NBC. In 2015, the co-pilot of a German airliner deliberately flies a plane into the Alps, killing 150 people. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. Where did Australian band INXS play its first gig in the United States? Seattle, Washington? Denver, Colorado? Phoenix, Arizona? Or San Diego, California? Liked learning about the Seattle Monorail? Then you'll love this one about the first ever self-serve grocery store. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.